so this article is very interesting because this is a topic that's very controversial in the US, although there are some people who believe that global warming is real and that we should do more about handling global warming. There are plenty of people who also don't think that global warming is natural, is real, and that it's just natural. So it's really sad to see this controversy building up here when we look at other countries and how much effort they're putting into trying to combat it.
I would first like to say that I disagree with what Sebastian said about this topic not being applicable to Korean society. This past in one way that is evident in Korea right now is like this past rainy season in Korea was crazy. Like it lasted so long. Usually it lasts maybe a few weeks, but this time it came, it went, it came, it went. It was hot, it was cold, it was rainy, it was dry, it was humid. It lasted 2 months, and like Seoul flooded for the first time at that much in 80 years, all the way down to Yongin, it was flooded. Busan was hit hard. And so I feel like Korean kids saw all of this imagery, even down to like elementary school age kids. They saw all of this imagery on the news, and like they felt it themselves, because on Monday it would be hot. It would be like 31 degrees Celsius. And then on Tuesday it would be like 20 and raining and like pouring rain. And like, so I feel like at this point with global warming, I feel like everybody feels it. And I think that sometimes, especially little kids, they don't know that they feel it, right? They don't know that they experience, but I think that as teachers, if you point out all the ways in which the climate in Korea even has changed in little ways, kids will be able to recognize at least that much and at least talk about their experiences with that. But when I see articles like this, I kind of think about like how these articles, they keep coming out again and again. And it's almost like people don't really take them as seriously as they should.
Yeah.
And I think that would be an important topic to talk about with kids. Like, why don't people, and what do you think about why they don't, and what will be the ramifications of not doing that?
Hi. Yes. So for me, I have a lot of older students, and we've been doing articles for years with them. And this has always been a topic that they really enjoy talking about. One of my students wants to be an architect, and she's very passionate about climate change and sort of how to make sustainable, eco-friendly architecture with her career in the future. So we often discuss this. We talk about how it affects industries and how to affect change. And some of the students I have, they do some like environmental cleanup and things like that, because we talk about these topics, and it's great to see them really care a lot about their community and about the planet because of these topics. The topic itself, I mean, this one is about California. I lived in California a majority of my life. I've been evacuated for forest fires several times. When there's ash coming down around you, and you're packing up your bags and your car as soon as you possibly can. And it's something that happened when I was very young, and that memory still is kind of ingrained in me. And now living in Europe, we have these record heat waves and all of the trouble. And we had flooding in Belgium last year. And my cat is actually a rescue cat after the floods that happened here. He was kind of separated from his family and found, and we adopted a cat after the floods. And so all the things mentioned in this article have been very prevalent in my life. I've experienced the heat, the fires, and the floods. And yeah, I agree with what other people said, that we keep publishing and talking about these, and people keep kind of brushing it off, but it's something that we can't much longer. They've said the research is there. We have to do something within the next 10 years. So I'm hoping that the pressure ramps up for governments, putting in restrictions on things kind of to protect the future?
Well, regarding whether we should talk about this in class or not, I definitely think that it is a topic that every student can relate to and share their opinions about. Whether it's controversial or not, there are bigger parts that can be and smaller parts that aren't. So I think in general, this could be a topic that'll be good for students to talk about. And just my personal opinions about climate change. I've lived in 3 different countries for most of my life, the US, Israel, and South Korea. And so I've been able to see how each country is dealing with climate change or dealing with trying to have a good impact on the world in the future, whether it's recycling or just preparing for flooding or fires or heat waves and things. So I've seen in the personal lives of people, especially in South Korea with recycling, I think it's really good to see people putting so much thought and care into the recycling and all those things. And in the US, people do some recycling. In Israel, people don't do recycling at all. But more than just each person's individual responsibility regarding the future of the world and climate change, I think a big issue that people ignore is the effect that big companies are having on the planet. Because each person can do their own job, but as long as there's these big companies dumping oil in the oceans or dumping garbage in the oceans and all over the world, the individual person can't do much about that. So that's just my personal opinion. Maybe it can be a little controversial, but I feel like we should try to affect big companies more than we are now, because as we've said, there are these articles coming out. There have been scientists since the 50s and 60s talking about climate change, and nothing has changed in how we deal with it so far. So I think that's one step that needs to be taken in the hope that we can secure the world. Like Christine said, we only have 10 to 15 years to change things. Otherwise, there's no turning back.
Sure. I've been studying science all my life. It's global warming, and it's a thing, and it is happening. And Korea's climate is very similar to where I live in Florida, where our rainy season is starting at a later time when it's never been this late. And right now we're going into fall, and the weather's acting like it's the beginning of summer, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, it's definitely, the absolute contributes, like what is causing the biggest effects for global warming is something that scientists are still trying to figure out. But if it's a thing or not is not really up for debate. It's a thing. And I think that it's important, even if it's small changes that we can make, we should all do just a little bit to kind of mitigate the effects of global warming. So yeah, that's my opinion on that topic. One more thing I do want to say about like if we should be talking about this with students. I have students that like since Roe v. Wade want to talk about like even abortion. So whether this is controversial or not is like small potatoes compared to the stuff that they want to talk about, like the war in Russia, all different sort of topics. So this is very, very like small in comparison to other stuff, especially since I do debates very often. And the last thing I want to say also is like, as a teacher, I just think it's really important to not say like, this is wrong or that is wrong. It's more along the lines of like, why do you think this, as opposed to like, this is fake news and that's not real news or whatever the case is. I think it's more about like open discussion, but that's just my opinion.